I wanted to welcome everybody that's coming in at this stage, and thank you for participating with us for this evening. I'm Johnny Walker, the president of the Woodland Hills Homeowners Organization, and tonight we're going to be having a discussion with the two candidates for the 27th District for the State Senate. And before we do get started with that, I would like to see if we can get a hold of Ed Reynolds. Ed, I think that you're there. I'm going to put you up to allow you to talk. Ed, you can unmute yourself, Ed.
Yes.
Ed, I would ask you if you're there. You are. Hey, buddy. Ed, by the way, for all who do not know, is still conducting Wings Over Wendy's. Ed is a retired lieutenant colonel from the United States Air Force. Ed, if you would be so kind to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, I would deeply appreciate it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ed, thank you. Thank you for your service, too, that you've gone through with us. We deeply appreciate that, and keep up the good work that you're doing over there with Wendy's. I'm going to find some time to get over there with you at some point. We'll see what we can do with that. So a couple of background things for people to know about at this stage. We do need your emails. Please ship those emails over to me. You can do that by grabbing them at the website. You do know that we do have a website at WHHO.com. There's a place there where you can fill out your information under the contacts. We'd love to have your emails. We are desperately always in need of them to make sure we stay in contact with each other. That's important with us now because of the virus going around. Hopefully we'll be able to meet in person before too long, and we'll be able to continue on with this type of meetings too, I hope. There was our email newsletter went out to everybody. There are advertisers in that help us take care of the expenses on that. We ask you to please support them and let them know that you appreciate them helping us out as well. I want you to know next month, the October meeting will be on the 28th. We're going to have the two candidates for the LA Unified School District Board for out here to be talking with us about what's going on with the LA Unified School District and what's up with that. November meeting, we'll have Jesse Gabriel, who's our representative out here for the Assembly, to be talking about some of the things he's got. Jesse's probably going to get grilled on a couple of issues that were going on that were somewhat problematic for the past legislature, but we'll see what the story is with that. There are an update of some speech in the legislature. SB 1120, for those of you who are following it, will probably know that has not been passed. It ended up failing. It is going to be probably coming back up again. I think that you will find out that Henry did not vote on those. He did a no vote on those, but we'll find out why and what was going on in the legislature. That'll be one of our topics for tonight we'll talk about. There's also AB 3308, which has to do with some funding being available for LA Unified School District to build affordable housing on their school properties if they wish. It used to be initially on the first bill going through that it was only for those that were employed by the LA Unified School District. That has now been expanded to be any city employees, and now they've just amended it once again to go for basically anybody. And that creates some problems for that funding issue on what they're going to do. We have got 5 properties out here that are school district properties that we have been yelling and screaming about for a long time that they need to be maintained for educational purposes and not being used for any type of homelessness housing, especially the Oso property. As all of you know, we have quite a bit of development going to go on with the 2035 out here. In the next 10 years, we can expect to have about 14,000 new people in potentially, and we need a school. And we have open grounds for those properties to be built on. There are funds by the developers that go in to mitigate the damages to LA Unified School District. We need to find some way to keep those funds here. You'll hear a question to both of the candidates tonight about whether or not there's something that can be done in the state legislature and how they could, what they think they can be doing to make sure that those funds will stay here rather than going downtown for the school district use for other things. Quick update on the Promenade. As you may know, I think I mentioned to you last time, but for those that were not here with us, because we had some problems with being Zoom bombed, as you may have remembered, having made the front page of Kathleen Sterling's paper. That was quite an interesting adventure. I was playing whack-a-mole for about 10 minutes trying to get people off, and it still didn't work. So we changed our format for tonight, as you can tell. But anyway, Promenade, we've ended up signing an agreement with Westfield that provides some additional protections for the community up and above what is already in the proposals that were being approved by the city. That matter is up on appeal presently, not by us, but by another individual who took it up on appeal. So it's going to probably go back to the city council at some point in time when they have a chance to take it up. We don't know how long that's going to be, but it'll be coming up soon. The agreements that we have with them are going to run with the land, which basically is a major coup in the sense that anything that's being done over there with the agreement, it can't be changed. It's going to be running with the land. So if they sell that property off to somebody else, they can't come back into the city council later on and say, well, we have new people here, let's change what the city council is doing. This is an agreement with the people here in our community, with the homeowners, as to what they're going to be able to do and not be able to do in certain areas. And while there's somewhat of a gag order at this point in time, I'm not really at liberty to go into details, besides we have more important things to do for tonight. So there we are. It runs with the property. That's the biggest deal for you to know, and they can't really change it. Tonight, we've got the candidates for the 27th district. And what I think is interesting for you to note about that is the size. It is pretty crazy when you think about it. We have 40 state senators. We have 80 assembly members. We have U.S. representatives, for example, because of the divisions in the United States. The U.S. representative handles 704,000 people in their district. Well, the Senate district here in California, they hold 931,000. So 704,000 for the federal, but our state senators hold 931,000. It is large. And the other thing that's of interest is that the Democrats presently hold a 2/3 supermajority, 29 seats, in the Senate, and the representatives hold 11 seats. That is an interesting, not problem, but an interesting political issue as to who has control and whether or not somebody that comes in can and cannot do some things. So what I would like to do at this point in time is for each of the candidates to give us basically a background of who they are, why they're running for the office, and what they think they're going to be able to do by running the office. I have talked to Senator Stern earlier on and have asked him if it was appropriate for me to call him Henry as we go through this. For those of you that are out there, please don't believe that I'm showing any kind of disrespect, but I'll call both of the candidates by their first name, not to show any favoritisms or anything else on that. I hope that's acceptable. If not, send emails to somebody else on our board instead of to me. So there we are. Let's start just out of respect again. Henry, if you would, the floor is yours. Try to limit it, your time in here. You want to get to some questions and what have you as well. Henry, you've got the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Johnny. And hey, just for clarity, Ed Reynolds, we wouldn't have a country if it weren't for Ed Reynolds. So I know there were some questions in the chat about his recitation of the pledge, but he knows that pledge in his DNA. So I do appreciate you kicking off with one of our local heroes. And thanks, Johnny, and the rest of the Woodland Hills Homeowners Association. You all are, you've been great partners over the last 3 some odd years. I'm still kind of new to the politics thing. This is my very first office, ran back in 2016, and didn't quite expect things to go as they would, and for our politics to be as heated as they are nowadays, and for to get the kind of challenges, frankly, that we faced right out the gates coming into office. We've been through more wildfires than I can count. We had to endure and mourn and recover through a mass shooting in Thousand Oaks and another in Saugus. We've got a homelessness epidemic in the San Fernando Valley, and especially throughout the city of Los Angeles. We've got an economic climate that people are simply not surviving, especially gig workers, our small business owners. Didn't anticipate a pandemic. So, I'm not here to boast particularly. I don't think it's really a time to be prideful in politics and too proud of any of our accomplishments, because it's all a bit of a mess, to be quite frank. And in this country and in our region, in this state, these are very tough times. I find myself frankly overwhelmed some days just with the level of problems that we're facing. And as you said, serving about 1 million people, I wish there was more I could do some days, even dealing with things like EDD claims and getting through this pandemic and trying to make the gears of government work has been hugely frustrating. So, I'm in a unique spot though, where hopefully I can move the needle a little bit as somebody who works for you. If you're paying your taxes, I don't like to say that, that I am the 27th district. I frankly am your servant. And so even if you end up not voting for me, and welcome, Houman, by the way, it's nice to see you virtually now. This pandemic, like normally we'd actually be able to sit in a room and shake hands together and kind of get into it. This is such a sort of stale format, unfortunately, but look, we're stuck with what we are. And I'm excited to have a little bit of a dialogue in terms of what I want to get done going forward. Hopefully spend your dollars a little smarter, protect the integrity of our neighborhoods going forward. We've got a lot of pressures on us, especially in these hillside communities, to whether it's wildfires or new pressures in housing that I think threaten some of our neighborhoods. The homelessness crisis is almost too much to bear, and the economy needs to work better for all of us. That said, we're still a powerhouse in this state, and I truly believe that California can be a leader in this country. And it's not just that Democrats are in charge. Frankly, it's really that we have entrepreneurs, talent, and a real history here. I'm very proud to represent the Valley and the community here. We're made up of a very diverse community. I think we look after each other, and I hope we can do that more so now and hopefully after November. I don't want to see this election fracture this country and fracture our communities. I don't want to see this pandemic do the same thing. It's been hard on my family, and it's been hard on all of us, I know. And so I really hope that we can move past this crisis coming into next year and turn the corner and give ourselves all a boost and maybe heal a little together. I think doing work is the kind of stuff that actually brings community together. Talking about politics is good, and tonight, lay it on me. I don't mind criticism, or you didn't hire me or vote for me to celebrate me. I'm here to work for you. So I don't mind the critique wherever it may be coming from, but I would say that the more we can move past politics and actually do work together, whether it's building shelters in our community, or helping harden your neighbors' homes, or help look after seniors who are aging, or help serve our veterans, or help our school system and be a mentor, help develop better young leaders who actually believe in civics and a democracy. There are projects we can be doing together. And so just looking forward to getting through this election and doing work together again. So
thank you, Henry, on that one. I appreciate it. Houman Salem, I didn't give you a formal introduction before, but this is yours now. You've got the floor for a few minutes here, if you would, as to your background, what your credentials are, why you're running for this office, and what you think you're going to be able to do. You're on.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And I'm very excited to be here tonight. I want to thank the Woodland Hills Homeowners Association, Johnny, Aaron, both of you for organizing this. And I really want to thank Senator Henry Stern, and I hope it's okay if I call you Henry, for joining me tonight. In joining me tonight in what I'm sure will be a very delightful conversation about the issues that confront our district. So I'm new here. I'm new to politics. So let me give you guys an introduction to myself. My family settled in Chatsworth in 1976, and I attended all the local schools here. Chatsworth High School, graduated in 1990, went to Moore Park College, got my AA degree in 92, went to Cal State Northridge, got my bachelor's degree in history in 94, and finally Pepperdine University, where I earned my MBA in 2001. I've applied the MBA to live an American way of life, which is a very entrepreneurial way of life. Today, through a lot of massive amount of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, I own a successful small business, an award-winning, globally recognized fashion design house based right here in the San Fernando Valley. I'm one of the founding members of the Make It in America movement for apparel. I'm the oldest son of Iranian immigrants who came to this country to be a part of America, not to take away from America. We didn't ask for any help or support, any handouts, and everyone in my family made it on their own. My father is an aerospace engineer. My mother was a school teacher. We grew up here at a time in which it was not necessarily easy to be an Iranian in America. You may recall the 1979 Islamic Revolution that occurred in Iran and the 444 days of the hostage crisis. Being a young kid in those days was not necessarily easy. Notwithstanding, I miss the San Fernando Valley that I grew up in, when it was a thriving and storied area, when movies and songs were written about it, when it was once the 10th largest economy in America. I made Woodland Hills my home in 1998 when I bought a small 2-bedroom townhouse off of Topanga. I lived there until recently, until 2018. I've since moved literally 2 blocks away. I'm in West Hills now, so I'm still in the neighborhood. I know this area very well. My roots are deep in District 27. This has always been and will always be my home. I'm not a politician. I'm a business owner running for office, and there's a big difference there. In business, you can tell a lot about management by looking around the company. And I believe now in politics, you can tell a lot about leadership by looking around at the cities and the states. And just take a look around our district. It is a mess. This can be confirmed by so many people I speak to on a regular basis now as I campaign and talk to the community. For example, the family from Tarzana that's ready to give up on the California dream, girl that can't afford her rent anymore and can't study anymore at Pierce College. A friend of mine, very close friend, who can't rebuild his home in Malibu after the fires. And a recent conversation I had with the business owner off of Nordhoff, owns a logistics firm who's ready to pack it up and move to Nevada. It seems that California is run by a small group of San Francisco elites who feel that what is best for San Francisco is best for the rest of the state. It also appears, and I underline appears, that this group has a lot of influence over all other policymakers. What may work for San Francisco will not work for Woodland Hills. I bring a local perspective, my passion for the district, and it looks like I'm getting a call, sorry. My apologies. Passion for the district, along with my global business expertise to provide fresh new leadership in Sacramento. And I thank you all for this opportunity.
All right, let's stay with you for a second on that, Houman, and we'll come to Henry on the same type of question. You're running as a Republican, correct?
Former Democrat, and I would say California Republican, which is a very light type of Republican to be.
Okay. Well, the
Republican light.
As I pointed out earlier, presently the Democrats have got a majority in the state legislature. They've got 29 seats they hold in the Senate. There's only 11 seats for the Republicans up there. With a supermajority, it's pretty tough for any Republicans to get anything done. How do you see your position if you were elected getting up there and basically walking into the hornet's nest on trying to get stuff done? You haven't been up there before. What we found with some other legislators, they make all the promises of everything in the entire world they're going to be able to do, and they get up there and they suddenly realize that if they don't, quote, play ball, it'd be my portion to it, that those in control who assign out to them their staff and where their office is going to be end up putting them back in a little broom closet someplace because they're not behaving themselves. How do you plan, if you're elected, to be able to handle the fact that you would be up against a supermajority and trying to get something done?
Well, first of all, I'm not afraid of broom closets. You should see my office now. The person that brought me into politics is Shannon Grove. She's the current Republican minority leader in the Senate. I met her several years ago, and she came to me and said, "Houman, I need your help. I need guys like you alongside me in Sacramento. Look, we're not going to be able to make any earth-shattering changes yet, but we have to take everything one step at a time. The first thing we need to do is break the supermajority. Once we do that, then we can look at the future and bring people in that can run for office and find people that can run for office so that we can at least have some balance. This is not going to happen overnight. I've got the fight in me to work with Shannon and work even with the Democrats to hopefully bring some logic and sense. Like, for example, today when Gavin Newsom decides to ban all gas-powered vehicles by 2035, I don't think there was enough strategic thinking involved in that decision, with all due respect. So to answer your question, I'm ready to go up there and fight with Shannon, stand right alongside Shannon. We have to break the supermajority first before we can do any groundbreaking legislation.
Very good. Henry, same question back to you. What is it like up there in Sacramento, since now the Democrats have got a supermajority on getting things done? Who's controlling, and how much of a voice do you have as being a junior senator that came up in this last election of actually getting your voice heard and actually getting things done? What are you able to do with that present thing, and what's holding you back from getting more stuff done?
It's a good question. There's a lot of different kinds of Democrats in this state. I'd say it's not all one stripe, and I do think that the San Francisco brand of the Democratic Party, frankly, doesn't work in our valley. But I think that we've been pretty darn productive over the last 3 years. I think this pandemic was a gut punch, and it's thrown off the entire legislative process. And, I've been working pretty well, frankly, with our minority leader, Senator Grove, until this pandemic hit. And I don't know if it's this election or what, but all that sort of early sense of bipartisanship and opportunities to work across the aisle. We did a lot of work, for instance, with our first responders. I got a major bill through to get health care essentially for people for post-traumatic stress injuries, both law enforcement and firefighters. Worked with a bunch of Republicans on that, Democrats. Those kinds of bills, working together on wildfire investments and resilience, trying to get our neighborhoods safer. It kind of all fell apart down the home stretch, and it was really disappointing. And sometimes the problem, it's easy to blame the Republicans. I will say I was very disappointed just that they wanted to go for just essentially a filibuster, politics of destruction, and just try to shut down the legislative process, because I don't think that really helps serve anybody. And as a result, we got denied, say, $500 million of investment that's going to keep our neighborhood safer through this fire season, and a number of other important bills pending. But it's easy to just blame Republicans. I think part of it also is when you get that supermajority, it's easy to get soft, and it's easy to sort of just go with the flow and do what everyone else is doing. So, I've had to take some tough votes and part ways with my colleagues on some issues. Some public safety matters, for instance, haven't always been there. I don't think right now our criminal justice system is working right. And I think that people are, who were formerly getting diverted into, say, drug treatment programs or pulled into the system, are now just sort of being recycled and thrown back out on the streets, and had to vote against a few bills from, my colleagues from San Francisco, or on some of this housing legislation, frankly, where they, this year and in years past, Bill SB 50, and then there was another bill, SB 1120, that was trying to put that sort of that one-size-fits-all solution on our backyard.
Let's talk about that in a little bit more detail, and we'll come back to Houman on that one too. Because we just had a question come up in the chat room wanting to know about what happened with 5050. SB 50 was a bill that came up in the last legislature, and the new grown-up to that one was the SB 1120, which was defeated. But if you can, we've got a fellow up there by the name of Weiner who's been proposing most of the stuff. That's the San Francisco block that you're talking about. What I'm curious as to, and for those that may not have read the SB 1120, basically it's taken away the local control over developments. This is an oversimplification, and putting it in the state hands, so that while we here in the Valley have put together the 2035 specific plan to control what we're going to do here in some kind of a reasonable, rational way to increase the density, the state basically is saying, well, we're going to decide what's going to be right for you and your developments, and we're going to set the rules for what you're going to do throughout the entire state, regardless of whether or not you're doing what's right or not doing what's right. And there seems to be this movement that's going on, and a very strong block of about 4 senators, I think, up there in the House too, that want to take that control out of this. And tell us, if you will, what your impression is of Weiner up there and that northern San Francisco block. what you're doing as far as your collaboration with others that are down here in the Senate, and how you're opposing, or what's your position going to be on the state taking over our local control.
I still believe in local control. And I think that, we've had some organizing calls with your homeowners association and homeowner associations throughout the Valley, and folks living along the LA River, and everyone's sort of on the front lines of all this. And frankly, that grassroots political organizing was what gave us a little bit of footing to slow all this down. Your description's pretty much accurate. I mean, essentially it would have just eliminated the local zoning and allowed just to fourplex out our whole region, sort of regardless of where you live.
Well, Henry, there seems to be this push to try to get rid of single family homes, period, and say that that's something in suburbia that just cannot exist any longer. And that's a change, a major change in the way that I think America lives generally. Everybody wants to have their single family home, and that's kind of a dream, if you will. And it seems the state legislature is trying to stomp on that. Yeah,
well, I would say, it could be a lonely spot sometimes, and not just as a Democrat. Look, there were 39 members of the Senate who voted for that bill, SB 1120. There was only one who didn't. That was me. And you can say, well, you need to have more influence, and why couldn't you stop it in the Senate? You're right. There is a lot of power, and the developers have a lot of power, and that bill was sailing through at that point, both with Republicans and Democrats supporting. I have a bit of a unique perspective because we were talking about fires, and I've lived through, I can't tell you how many, week of my wedding, I'm like being evacuated and evacuating my parents then the next night, and my place burned down in Woolsey, and, we've been through it. And I think it's crazy that, especially in the fire zones, where you've got, go up to Penn Canyon Boulevard or go up any of these sort of canyon roads, from a public safety perspective, I think it's risky to add density to those kinds of communities when we don't really have home hardening, and we don't have adequate evacuation plans, and we don't have the infrastructure needed to survive a fire. So that's been my sort of central critique. I was I was the only guy who spoke against SB 50 on the floor in my party. And that one didn't pass either. I would say, don't be too fatalistic about your power here. I think there's still space for people who believe in livable neighborhoods. Not everyone can afford the single family home right now. The economy doesn't always lend itself to that, right? So, we want a diversity of housing, but there shouldn't be antipathy, frankly, for single family neighborhoods. It's more about how do you find letting the land dictate the use. That's how I always think about it, right? And so you look at a spot like Canoga Park at the end of the Orange Line, or in Warner Center, I really think there are opportunities for growth there. And I think we frankly have to do something about it.
The issue is we've been doing that from a local standpoint and trying to control it, not letting the state do it at that stage. Listen, 1120 just barely got defeated. It was coming up in literally the 11th hour. It came out of the Senate. It went back over the Assembly. The Assembly finally did some tweaking on it and passed it like 2 minutes before the clock ran out, and didn't have time to ship it back to the Senate to get it done. It's going to come back up again. I think what people would want to know is whether or not you can give a commitment, a firm commitment, that you're going to support us having local control over these type of things, and not allow the state legislature to take this back away from it, and fight it on every grounds you can on the floor of the Senate, whether it be in the media or whether it be from whatever podium you can get. Will you promise that you're going to be able to support us on the local control and not let the state take that away?
100%. I wouldn't waver on that. And you do have my commitment. I would just say, don't take your eye. Like, there's a lot of balls coming at you at once. So it's easy to get fixated on, say, 50 or 1120. And we did deal with those. But there's a lot of other bills coming at you all at once, and it's really hard to track this stuff. You know it. We've been in these meetings trying to strategize. And so there's a question in the chat room about, will you protect CEQA review and local voice on all projects? I think that's really, I want to commit more than just the 1120 vote. I'm saying, CEQA is there for a reason. It happens to be that I'm an environmental lawyer by training. I never knew that it would be such a useful tool in terms of dealing with housing, but that hook, giving you all local voice in this process, I think is critical to the integrity of our whole community. And it doesn't just mean saying no. Don't call yourselves a NIMBY. I don't think it's fair to get characterized that. You can say yes, but you got to say yes in the right places and no in the wrong places. So,
all right, Henry, let's go over to Houman and see if we can get a similar commitment from him on that one. The problem on it is, as you're hearing, Houman, with 1120 and some of the other rules that the state legislature is trying to come up with by way of statutes, is to take away our local control on that. What is your feelings about that? And are we going to be able to get a commitment from you if you're elected that you're going to protect the local control over development so that we can have local control rather than trying to get a cookie cutter that will fit everybody in the entire state?
Well, again, it goes to what I was saying in the opening. You know, the San Francisco politicians feel that what is right for San Francisco is good for Woodland Hills and the rest of California. You have my commitment, 1.5 billion, because I do not want to do anything that's going to disrupt the ecosystem of the suburbs. I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up in the end of a cul-de-sac where me and my friends were able to play, you know, baseball with a wiffle bat and a tennis ball in the streets and break a few windows. You know, there's a certain lifestyle and there's a specific reason why families choose to move to the suburbs to raise their families and to live a certain quality of life. And I will never vote for anything that will disrupt that. I want to thank Henry Stern for voting no on SB 50 and no on 1120. And I really, you know, I'm happy to hear that he will not vote for any other iteration of this bill, because it looks like Scott Wiener is completely at war with the suburban lifestyle. Again, he's the San Francisco state senator who authored SB 50, and he's going to keep cutting it up into bite-sized pieces and keep trying to jam it through. The issue for me with a lot of the Democrats in Sacramento is that the ability to communicate and negotiate diplomatically seems to be gone. You know, in politics, and politicians need to be able to share opinions and ideas with one another. So in the hopes that you can maybe change my mind or I can change yours. But it seems as though in Sacramento, there's this big giant party going on with the politicians, and everyone's funding the other's campaigns and money being put back and forth. And I'll fund you this if you vote on this bill, and I'll vote on that bill, so on and so forth. As a CEO of a company, this is the kind of things that disgust me, you know. And I'm not trying to I want to talk about funding in just 1 second too, because I've not been funded by anybody. I have not accepted. I've spoken with the NRA, I've spoken with the oil lobby, I've spoken with the builders unions, I've spoken with everybody. You know what I said? No, I don't want my career to be in someone else's hands. I'm not doing this as a career. I want to get back to my job. I have a fantastic company. I love what I do, but it is so miserable to work in California and run a business in California that I feel it's my obligation right now to go in and fix a few things, do my time, do my term, and go back to work. I don't want to be the next thing, you know, the next governor, the next whatever. So, back on topic, back on subject. No, I will not do anything that's going to disrupt the cohesiveness and the ecosystem of the San Fernando Valley or the suburbs. You got my commitment on that 100%.
Houman, there's also something else that kind of dovetails into that too, with the changes that legislature is trying to make. There's presently a Proposition 19 that's coming up. It's really beginning to water down, in my opinion, and some others, that Proposition 13, the protections we have on the increase of the taxes on residential property. This is really going to be having an effect upon the commercial properties and changing a lot of the laws to it. But it seems to be by way of a constitutional amendment through Proposition 19 that they're going to try to do away with that. What's your position concerning the Prop 13 being protected, the old Prop 13, your position on 19, and what would you do in the state legislature if you're elected to be able to protect those type of protections that homeowners have had for decades now?
Right. So I'm proud to be endorsed by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, and I will not do anything that's going to tamper with or otherwise change in any way, shape, or form the original Prop 13 of 1978. If that was not in place today, we would not be able to afford anything in California. Now they're coming with a split roll. Now you're talking about 19 or 15, because there's 15 that's going to change the classification. So if you're talking about 15, right? So I believe that 15 is a trial balloon to see, look, we're going to do a split roll, and if the people vote yes, then all commercial properties. Now that introduces a whole nother set of issues and problems for small businesses and businesses all over. But there are a lot more residential structures than there are commercial structures. So it's going to be a complete, windfall if they're finally able to get to the residential, and they will. So once 15, if it passes, I really hope it doesn't, and I'm voting no on it, not to tamper with or any way, shape, or form alter the original Prop 13 of 1978. But if it passes, you can rest assured they're going to come after the commercial, the residential homes. Now, if you look at your property tax bill and you think to yourself, where is this money going? And could you afford to live in California? Could you afford to live in that home if your property taxes double? Most likely not. You know, we can discuss, and I would love to discuss if the opportunity arises, what's going on with this money, the fact that, you know, we have such failing schools, and that this can dovetail into the next subject. But to stay on point, to answer your question, no, I'm not going to do anything that would tamper with Prop 13. I'm going to vote no on 15.
Henry, a question back to you. What do you feel about Prop 13 and the attempt to try to water that down, and what the future holds for that particular proposition? Where do you stand on that, and what things are you going to do up in the state legislature to help protect us?
Well, I support Prop 13. I'm not interested in repealing it, especially for, you know, the homeowners. I think when you referred to 19, it's an interesting question, because it actually would allow folks who sell their homes, especially seniors, I think it's 55 and over, to keep that property tax basis in their home. So that's a little different. It's Prop 13 related, but I don't know if it's quite characterizable as an attack on 13. I think if anything, it kind of preserves 13 for people who want to sell. And we had negotiated, it didn't really work the last time, so we'd negotiated in some guaranteed funding, say for firefighting and things like that. I don't really have a problem with the big sort of old legacy industrial and commercial properties getting their property taxes updated, Dodger Stadium or the Jonathan Club. You know, I mean, it's not just money that matters. You can't just throw money at problems all the time, but the fact is that we don't have a federal government backing us. We're sending more dollars to them than they're sending back to us. And we've got a, you know, $25 billion hole we got to fill. So we're in a tight spot. I think if I were you all, I would take a hard look at 15 and really consider it. I don't think it's going to have a direct impact. And I don't see it as sort of a camel's nose under the tent in that sense. I wouldn't support a residential property tax increase, but I think I'm leaning towards supporting 15, just because I don't see the problem in updating some of those old legacy huge, you know, commercial industrial properties, especially given the whole. If it were a different financial climate and we had a good working relationship with Washington, and we weren't having to choose between, say, like, you know, dealing with healthcare for seniors and taking care of our veterans and having enough money to address homelessness services, like, we're so squeezed. I think we've been forced into this spot. So I'd take a hard look at it if I were you.
Do you feel that when they start working on the commercial properties, that it's going to increase the cost of having commercial property? And don't you feel that that's going to be passed on to those that are tenants of commercial properties or tenants of residential properties? It's going to increase the cost of operating generally in the state again.
And look, yeah, the commercial real estate, I mean, to be a tenant right now anywhere, but take the San Fernando Valley is darn near impossible, because you're not generating any revenue and the leases keep going up and up. But we're not talking about a big change in, say, how, you know, my friend and former opponent, Steve Fazio, has cleaners all over the valley. Like, you know, he buys a place in Woodland Hills or in Calabasas. That property tax basis is not going to ratchet up hugely. It's really the ones that go back to, you know, the 30s and 40s and 50s that are going to see a big increase. But those are the big titans that I think, frankly, can afford it. I think the small business owners, we put a whole incentive package together for them, and that commercial real estate market, they do need some help. Unfortunately, we don't have the same assistance programs that we have, say, for tenants and landlords right now. The commercial market, they're frankly left behind. And I think we are going to go through a commercial real estate crisis, but not because of this property tax issue. It's more so about the end of retail and demand changing entirely, and our ability to sort of dig our way out of this mess. So I'm not sure what the answer is, But I don't think this is a huge part of the problem.
Do you think that it's a major way to be able to generate additional tax monies? And if they don't do it, is the state going to be hurting for their monies for other projects?
Yeah, I mean, I like we went through a pretty aggressive round of budget cuts this year just to get to a balanced budget, but the triggers will kick in if Congress won't act on, say, the HEROES Act, if the Senate decides that they're just going to leave us hanging, we're going to have to go cut funding for the UC, the CSU, public safety, first response, fire, real stuff. People are going to get hurt. And in the nursing homes, you name it, like we're going to trigger $15 to $20 billion in cuts straight out the gates. And like people are going to be hurt, bankrupt, on the street. So again, what I hope that happens, frankly, is that the U.S. Senate grows a conscience and like wants to do something right now. But so far, that's more of a faith-based endeavor. I'm praying for it, but I don't know if it's going to happen. So I think we've got to put this on the table. If after that, if 15 passes and then we get ourselves back on track economically, I don't think it has to necessarily be evergreen. I think we can take another look at things and tighten our belts again, but I just don't know where else to go. I don't want to go after small businesses. I don't want to go after residents. I don't want to go after, your income tax or your payroll taxes. So it's either cut to the bone or try to find some of these legacy property owners.
All right, let's stay with that one and we'll come back to Houman too on it. But Henry, it's generally believed by about everybody, I think rightfully so, it's extremely expensive to do business in the state of California. It's almost impossible for businesses to really hang on, especially now with what's going on with the virus and shutting down things. Very expensive here. What do you see that you can do or that the state should do in order to make it more palatable for businesses to stay here in California rather than taking off to Texas or other locations? It seems like the legislature just is not doing anything. What do you think should be done and what can be done?
So I moved legislation, I think it was last year, that resulted in a commission that I'm now serving on with some of the top business minds in the state of California. It's called the Future Work Commission. And I don't think we can sort of solve this economic crisis in like a series of small gestures. Yes, we did put together a $200 million small business relief package at the end of session. Hopefully that patches things up. We're trying to get the PPP through. We're trying to get as much throughput as we can on the consumer side at the EDD, on unemployment insurance. But if this pandemic, if we can't actually put this thing down and kill this virus off, it will break us. And I don't think we can't print money in the state of California. And I don't think it'd be wise to borrow forever. So we're going to be in an untenable spot unless the feds step up. But what I do think is part of the hopeful element of the work I get to do. This commission, I'm working with Salesforce and some of our tech leaders and McKinsey and all these, leading minds and economists. We have to really start educating people for a very dynamic workplace. We can't just educate, and that's not just K-12, and that's not even just higher ed. That's the existing workforce too. We can't educate for the jobs of the past. And I think we've got to get a lot smarter about how we prepare people for the future. And this is even young people right now graduating college with, say, good academic credentials, but they just sank themselves into 4 years of debt. And now they got to go out and try to figure out how to survive and live. I think we should be doing more apprenticeship programs early. We got historic funding through, we had to cut it this year a fair bit, but $300 million fund for apprenticeship programs to get people into things like infrastructure or teaching them how to retrofit homes or getting people in the nursing profession, caring for both people at their end of their lives and at the beginning of their lives. That care economy to me is something that is underutilized and to me ought to be a backbone. And then that infrastructure investment is the other sort of buoying force that I believe can really save this state and this whole country. So I ran a bond this year that didn't make it onto the ballot, unfortunately, but it would have invested about $5 billion into infrastructure investment throughout the state and put people to work and get the San Fernando Valley water independent, not dependent on the North, or again, reinvest in wildfire resilience, or make the LA River not a drainage ditch filled with shopping carts, but maybe a safe park space for people to have that, oh, by the way, captures all the stormwater we're sending out to sea and wasting all this money. So, you know, I think between infrastructure and the care economy, to me, that holds some promise for the future. But obviously, there's a lot of other folks in between. So, you know, it's gonna take all hands on deck.
All right, let's see what Houman, have you got some ideas of what we can do to keep businesses here or bring new businesses back in and make sure that they don't start leaving, because otherwise they're leaving the tax base. What's your plan, or how do you see that going in the future? What do you think you can do in the state legislature in order to get to help us to keep people here in the state?
I'm chomping at the bits to get to this question. I'm a small business owner. Listen, small business is the engine that drives this country. Do not believe anything else. In that Prop 15, if you think, sure, the Jonathan Club and then Dodger Stadium are going to pay more, so will every small business on Ventura Boulevard who currently is under dire straits of this pandemic. This is not the time to be pushing any new taxes on businesses, because we've been decimated. We've been brought to our knees. My business has been brought to its knees because of the policies of the state. And so the idea that they're going to pass any new taxes is an absolute insult to any business owner in the state and in my district. That Ventura Boulevard was a storied boulevard, 12 miles of nothing but continuous businesses. Pre-pandemic, by the way, it's been falling apart pre-pandemic. So now you're talking about a new tax and it's okay? No, it is not okay. You got me going. What am I going to do? I'm going to author a small business bill of rights, because I will tell you that every agency, from the EDD to the labor department to the health inspector, come talk to me, sit down with me, come to my office. Let me tell you what's going on. Let me show you all of the egregious audits that I've been getting, PAGA lawsuits, you name it. You know, trial lawyers getting rich, coming from Beverly Hills into the Valley, suing businesses off the planet. We need a small business bill of rights in California. We need to change the way California does business with business. And I would be the very first person in this state Senate and in the state that would author this bill, because we absolutely cannot continue the way we're operating. We are driving, 18,000 companies have left. Tesla is leaving. Toyota has left. Boeing has left. Like I said, the San Fernando Valley was once the 10th largest economy in the country. We are nowhere near that anymore. No, I'm the one to fix this problem. Come talk to me.
All right, let's stay, if you will, on a bit of the propositions, but changing course a little bit. Let's go over to Prop 20, which is coming up now at this point. This has to do with a lot of the criminals coming back onto the streets. Prop 47, as you may know, and Prop 57 changed the incarceration rules on a lot of them. And I, as a lawyer, recall very clearly being up in Victorville at one point, same with some of the, I was taking some deposition of probation officers up there. And when the Bill 47 just passed, they were livid. And because they knew that there were people that were flat out criminals coming back into their city that they knew that they were going to have to start dealing with again, and was going to really put a crunch on them. And now with the movement to try to defund some of the police in some parts of the country, we're coming up with what the heck are we doing with it? Proposition 20 is trying to roll back some of those particular problems. Where do you see yourself in supporting 20, supporting what's going on as far as decriminalizing a lot of these things, putting people back on the street or making it tougher? I guess basically where are you on the crime enforcement issue?
Is that for me?
Yep.
Okay. So, I think Prop 47, Prop 57, and AB 109 have been three failed pieces of legislation that has brought California to its knees from the standpoint of public safety, homelessness, criminal vagrancy. I'm for rolling back those anything that would roll back those three pieces of legislation, and those are fairly recent in our state. So you can see that homelessness has always been an issue in the Valley, but it's never been a crisis. We're now at a level 9, 10 crisis, and a lot of that could be attributed to the fact that the people that come out of prison, a lot of them probably don't have a lot of places to go. Yeah, I would roll that back, absolutely.
It seems that a lot of the people that come back out just don't have any place to go. They almost feel more comfortable, some that I'm hearing from some of those that understand this far better than I would be, that they feel more comfortable by being in prison. When they're put outside, they almost start looking to find ways to get back inside, because they know that's the norm for them. From a legislative standpoint, if you were elected and went to the state legislature, what would you do as far as trying to get new laws passed? What would it look like?
So, I would have to work with both sides of the aisle and learn more and be educated more on the subject matter. The solution is not, I understand it's the prison unions that wanted to release prisoners because of the overcrowding and the fact that they didn't have the resources to take care of the ratio of prison guards to prisoners. And as a result, it seems like the best solution was to let the prisoners out. Well, that seems like the worst idea. And that doesn't seem like the right thing to do. It defies logic. It's like the opposite of gravity. You don't let people out that haven't served their time. But I would certainly want to, work with people a lot smarter than me and come up with a better idea, a better solution. The solution is not to let people out.
Henry, where are you at on that as far as supporting Prop 20 or against it? Or what do you think should be done legislatively to be able to take care of what we've got and a problem in the state with the criminalization of certain activity and the defunding of police? And what are we gonna do? What's your position on that? What do you think should be done up in the state legislature?
I think, I get the frustration behind Prop 20, but if you look at the details, it's pretty heavy-handed, especially on 109 and 57. And it's not just a Democrat concern. It's, we've got the president himself has actually endorsed some of the reforms that are contained in Prop 57. And, guys like Newt Gingrich are out there talking about we can't afford to just keep locking people up for drug crimes. We should be compelling people into treatment. We shouldn't just be putting people back on the streets. And the whole slap on the wrist culture that we've built is lazy. It makes law enforcement have to act like social workers, which is crazy. But I don't think that just chucking all that, all those propositions is a smart way to go. First of all, you're going to drive up costs in the state. I don't know, they're $10 billion. So you just rebuilt the prison and you suddenly now have to cut the entire school budget and the healthcare budget by a bit. So that seems pretty ill thought out. There are changes, however, in especially Prop 47 that I'd be pursuing. We lost our diversion programs in that process. And I think that when you look at especially the property crimes going on under $1,000, you should not be able to steal a gun and be let off the hook. We should be having consequence for people who are openly using drugs, say, under our freeways. But to go just blindly force ourselves into locking them up for a long time and put you taxpayers on the hook, I just find I'm surprised that somebody who cares about small business and wants lower taxes would want changes in that, because the fact is it's actually going to drive up your taxes if you vote for those reforms. I think there's a smarter way to go deal with crime and with mental health issues and with homelessness, and to try to sort of lop all that together and just throw everyone away. It's too pricey, and it's not right. It's immoral. I think we should be helping compel people into care. Help pass a bill this year, AB 1976, that's going to finally force LA County and other counties to get people into assisted outpatient treatment, for instance. Should we put those people in jail? Way, way more expensive. Even put them in a hospital in conservatorship. You go blow, $100,000 in a matter of weeks on one person. That's fiscally dumb. And it's also really wooden approach to policy. People actually need to get walked through a continuum of care and not get sort of forced into just a lock it up mentality. So I think if you have both fiscal and human concerns, you should think twice about voting for that proposition. I've pushed bills in the past in the legislature to get 47 reform done, and I think we can get some more meaningful changes done. I just mentioned a few on, say, gun theft or other sort of property crimes, drug diversion, but this one, it's we can't afford it.
Well, that kind of brings us into the homelessness issue that's going on here too. As you may know that Bob Blumenfield has set November the 16th as a deadline to get people out from underneath the bottom of the freeways at this point, both basically on Corbin and Winnetka, and put them into some type of facilities. The monies we put in for Triple H and H for the county and the city are huge amounts of monies, and the proposals to try to build houses for them and what have you is somewhat out of control. Do you think that there's some place for the state to step in to try to do something with providing, if nothing else, some mental health facilities, using state monies to it, mandating it for certain hotspots in the counties throughout the state, to where that they can have a place where they can actually do something with them, rather than, you know, some of the proposals now are, let's rent out some of the hotels and put these people in a hotel. And my experience, which is very limited, but I know from going down to the courthouse downtown, they have their own community. I mean, they have their own people, that are their own security people, if you will. They have people that ride around on bicycles and make sure that everybody's okay and what have you. It's its own little community that sits outside. And it seems that we're trying to put Band-Aids on this and take the visualization of it away without doing anything for it. It seems that there be something that the state can do. What are your feelings about that, as to where the state should step in to do something to help this compassionate need that's there for the people who are not just out of a home, but rather those that are homeless because they just can't cope with society?
Yeah, and I try not to think about the homelessness epidemic as one thing. I think there are people who fell behind on rent and are sleeping in their car. There's people who've been, exposed to domestic violence, or a kid who's LGBT and ran away from home. That's different than somebody who's schizophrenic and addicted to methamphetamines, right? So, like with a certain slice of people experiencing homelessness, you actually do have to find a way to get them into some kind of housing. And that is about having more affordable housing options. That's not necessarily the kind of housing you're talking about, but we have an affordability crisis in that regard. So for those people, anyone who wants to live in housing should be able to find themselves some housing. But the folks that you're talking about under the freeways, or the people that we often think of as, the ones who make us scared to walk our dog to the market, people who are going through an episode or unstable for whatever reason, those people who refuse care and are so gravely disabled that they're either going to die on the streets or hurt you. The right to die on the streets is no right at all. I don't think that at that point, you shouldn't be able to refuse care. So I've been running legislation. Ironically, you mentioned Senator Wiener earlier. He's considered, by the way, a moderate in San Francisco. Interestingly enough, he's got a challenger to the left from the left of the left, I guess. But Senator Wiener, even himself, where they're dealing with it in San Francisco, people refusing care, we've been trying to reform what they call the Lanterman-Petrie Shorty Act. So LPS reform, they call it also conservatorships, to bring people temporarily into the wardship of the state and to compel them into care and to find people a way to, say, get back on their meds, reconnect with their families, hopefully, and stabilize them in a way that isn't so much an incarceration-oriented approach. Because right now, we do 5150 people, right? The cops go out, arrest them, bring them in. You spend a bunch of your taxpayer dollars. They have a horrible night in jail. They get spit back out onto the street. They're angrier than ever. They're still addicted. They're still having their mental health crisis, and nothing is solved. So we're kicking the can down the road. I am thrilled that Judge Carter has pushed the city of LA to start solving this challenge. And I think Councilman Blumenfield has frankly stepped up to the plate to try to solve things in our backyard. And it's a completely thankless job. Y'all are never going to be happy with him because he's as many people as he can get into a bed or into treatment. There's so many more coming onto the streets as we speak because of the lack of affordable housing and because of the drug epidemic that, like, it almost feels like we're not making progress at all, like we're running in place. But I really do think the state, it's not just about throwing money at it. The county's been sitting on a lot of dollars. We have something called the Mental Health Services Act. It's a proposition passed a while back, an audit that I ordered of, yes, our Democratic controlled LA County Board of Supervisors, but you got to audit your friends too. Like, you can't spare anybody. This isn't about like slap on the back. Oh, I'm going to ignore your problems. That's not why you hired me to do this job. So I ordered an audit of the county. We looked at their books, and they got a lot of money still lying around from that. They've been trying to put it into housing, and really focus just on the infrastructure, the permanent supportive housing side. But I'm really trying to push them now. Don't stockpile it and just wait for housing. It's about services. It's about treatment. We need people on the streets that aren't the cops. Like, let the police go do what they do, which is keep us safe. And then let's get the right social workers, drug treatment folks out into the field and find ways to get people care. And to me, it is a form of compassion. It is a form of some tough love. And I think that we can actually help people through some of these crises where they don't even have capacity to help themselves.
Houman, let's get back to you on the same issue. What if you're elected and you get up to state legislature? What do you think that you can do up there to try to help solve this homelessness problem that seems to be unsolvable in some fashion? I guess we've been doing stuff and without coming up with any result to it. Do you think there's a place for the state to do something, and what do you think it is, and how would you approach that?
Yeah, great. So homelessness is actually one of my top 3 subjects, one of the 3 issues I'm running on. And here's where we have a fundamental difference in ideology in that, I'm sorry, my battery's been running low. You guys with me?
We're here.
Sorry. The difference in ideology, I don't think it's a housing problem. We have welcomed from 680,000 to 1 million undocumented immigrants into our community, and they've all found a place to live. So, is it a housing issue? Go drive on DeSoto and Van Owen. Look at the 1 square block of DeSoto and Van Owen, or DeSoto and Oxnard. Look at the multi-mega complexes that are currently being constructed, and all of them in various stages of construction. We're building so many houses, but the undocumented folks have found a place to live. So, there's a cause and effect correlation. We want to be a compassionate people, but we have to be reasonable. We cannot just continuously let people into the city undocumented and then say, well, it's a housing issue. And then you see, politicians passing measures like Measure H and HHH raised $3.2 billion. 3 years later, they only built 200 units. Well, what happened to that money? So it seems like something needs to be investigated there. That's not for me to do. I'm not an investigative journalist. We have to engage the faith-based organizations, churches. I think there's a huge role in which they can play for people that are on the streets. There is a drug addiction issue, as we all agree on. There's a mental health issue that we all agree on. But the single mother living in the car with her children, I don't see her. I don't notice her. She's there. I don't see her. Why? Because just take a drive down the valley, and all you see are vagrants that seem to be on some sort of drugs or have mental issues. And it's a crime. It's an unforgivable crime that we let these poor people linger in the streets and pass measures and raise money and have blue ribbon committees. This is nonsense, folks. This is nonsense. We can solve these problems. We have not done enough with the faith-based organizations, and we have to at least consider expanding conservatorship. I'm very friendly with Dr. Drew. Henry, I'm sure you know I'm friendly with him as well. You are as well. And he has some brilliant ideas on the subject matter. I would call Dr. Drew and say, Dr. Drew, I am now a state senator. I want to engage you as a part of my team. And with your expertise in the medical field and health addiction and drug addiction, let's work together and come up with solutions. Again, I'm not the smartest guy in any room, but I know how to find the smartest people and bring them together. That's what CEOs do.
Well, it seems like that also gets into the next subject, which is kind of part of the homelessness issue of sorts, which is the sober living facilities. The sober living facilities, they claim, is that after the fires that were the Thomas fires and specifically the Woolsey fires, that a lot of the sober living facilities that are over in Malibu had to find another place to go, and they found some cheap and expensive housing to come into the areas over by Walnut Acres and some other areas, and have pretty much run havoc over those particular properties. It seems that, and nobody here seems to be able to touch them. The police are kind of got their hands tied with that too. It seems that this falls on the state legislature to really come in and do something. And it seems that there should be things done concerning proper certification of them, proper licensing of them, proper inspections of them, and making sure that the people that are there are being properly protected from a health, safety, and welfare standpoint. Not only just the people that are, I'll call them patients that are there, but also the staff that's helping them, whether they be other ones, doctors or nursing staff, and that they're not causing problems with the community. So I've got some serious problems with that and what to do with it. And then there's this other, at least a stigma that when their insurance money runs out, that they toss them out on the street and they become part of the homeless population because they were having difficulties. Houman, I see that your picture's back up at this point. Let's jump over to Henry on this particular one, and we'll come back to you on that. So Henry, if you would, what do you think the state legislature should do, and are you proposing any legislation with that? And if not, why not?
Yeah, so I actually started a task force on this after, wasn't just the Walnut Acres community, but it's friends of mine in Woodland Hills are dealing with the same issue. Got friends in Tarzana dealing with some of the same issues. It's become, there is some fraud, and I'll call it fraud, going on within the sober living home community, where the patients themselves are being underserved, mistreated, and really treated like cash cows, and then but not properly cared for. And meanwhile, they're going into they're manipulating the zoning to basically put a business into single family zoning areas that aren't really zoned for that, and starting to create these circuits where they have say a licensed facility in one place, but then an unlicensed facility across the street, moving people back and forth, essentially making a real estate play in our backyard and taking advantage of you as taxpayers for your health insurance dollars, and taking care of people who are at the bottom of their lives, really trying to get themselves sober and back on their feet. So it's a crime on a number of fronts. I think, look, there are things the legislature can do. We started a bipartisan task force, and we've run a series of bills over the past few years to try to reform the Department of Managed Health Care. The problem is, under federal law, we can't actually change how we zone these neighborhoods for people who are seen as having a disability to be able to live there in a group setting. It's seen as housing discrimination and a violation of the ADA. So Congress would actually have to act to change that part. So what we've been trying to do—
Let me stop you there. One lawyer to another lawyer at that point. It seems that you should be able to do something up there concerning the size of and how many people they can have in there. And also, yeah, that's not an ADA issue. That's strictly, let's not overwhelm our communities with stuff that's going on.
I hear you. We've run that bill literally, and we've got the opinion back that essentially it would be preempted by federal law and found to be unconstitutional. But I was going to say to you, I'm a kind of creative lawyer, so we've been trying to figure out, okay, if we hit a dead end there and say you can't have people living, say, 10 people to a house, or zone it that way, or try to zone them out based on what they're doing in the confines of their home. Instead, looking at things like insurance fraud and other ways that they're manipulating existing dollars and not actually delivering on those promises. And in fact, I don't want to get ahead of any investigations, but there are both state and federal active criminal investigations underway that we've been trying to facilitate here, that we're going to have to go after some of these for-profit institutions. But that said, we can't, as we just were talking about the drug treatment issue and trying to get people who are dealing with addiction issues off the streets, we have to also elevate the good guys, the folks who are doing a good job at it, and not just trying to bilk people and churn them out. So we're going to have to crack down on the bad guys, but we're also going to have to find a way to elevate the places that are safe, are in the right kinds of neighborhoods, aren't right next door to you, that have a opportunity for people to have sort of wraparound services. So I'm hopeful next year that we can get more done. I'm telling you, this pandemic, I mean, I know it's frustrating to talk about state of business and the state of the economy, but I am still, like, the thing I'm most deeply offended about is that we didn't nip this pandemic in the bud to start off with, and that they lied to us and said it wasn't a big deal, and then we broke out and then lost hundreds of thousands.
We're getting off topic on that. We'll go back into some federal stuff. Henry, what
our legislative process in a way to solve some of these problems, and that's all I was going to say. Is it's just it's criminal what's happened.
I got you, but coming back to the stuff on the sober living facilities, it seems to me that with the fraud that I believe is running rampant in that, and that's because I've handled some other cases similar to that, as a result, we can end up having, we should be able to have some inspections that are going on to help with that stuff on it. Houman, you're getting some feedback from you on your mic there. If you might want to kill your mic until we come back to you at this point. There seems to be a noise going on. Henry, it seems that what they're doing proper inspections on this stuff, they'll be able to help on that fraud, making sure the books are being opened on them, and also on trying to force them that if they're going to have the insurance payments on these people, and then the insurance runs out, that they cannot take somebody out of their facility until they find some other suitable place for them to go to. In other words, once they bring them in, they should have that responsibility of making sure that the money they're spending them gets them back into good health before they can ever release them. And for the state to have some kind of process to be able to supervise that, seems to me that gets away from all the ADA stuff. We'll start putting pressure on them to start not having the frauds going on. I guess what it is, we're frustrated about this, and we're not seeing the state doing anything.
You should be. There could be more that can be done. And Department of Managed Healthcare has got to step up here, and I think that's a really good idea. I'd run a bill to at least have a registry so we even know where they are, because we don't even know how to track them. The bill didn't make it through. I've had trouble convincing some of my Democratic colleagues to support this stuff, but I think that if we get a little more time and we're not in as crazy of a legislative session, I think we can actually get something done next year. And I'm hoping the governor helps us through this, because we're wasting money and we're ruining lives and we're ruining neighborhoods in the process. So I'm going to take that one back with me, Johnny. Okay, that sounds good. Houman, I see that you're back with us at this point. You can unmute yourself now at this point. We lost you a bit. In case you haven't picked up, we're talking about the sober living facilities and what, if you're elected, what you can do up in the state legislature to try to help get rid of not rid of them, but to where they're not infecting our communities the way that they are, knowing where they are and having somebody being able to do some inspections on them or doing something. If you're up there, what would you do in order to get the state to try to make sure that we're taking care of the health, safety, and welfare of our own community with these sober living facilities that are percolating now?
Yeah, and I do apologize. I had some battery issues here with my iPhone. We seem to be okay at the moment. So yeah, and then, this problem is actually pretty epidemic here in the West Hills and Woodland Hills area, in Calabasas and Malibu. So what's going on, in my understanding, is that you got a lot of these homes that advertise all over the country, come and we'll straighten you out and we'll help you out, and that's great. But they end up using the patients for their insurance money, and once the insurance money runs out, they put the people on the streets. And again, another issue as to what's contributing to our homeless crisis here in our district. Yeah, but I believe that this is a zoning issue. These sober living facilities or rehab facilities probably don't belong in a line of tract housing, on Van Owen Street, for example. This is something that should be probably zoned a little bit better. I would like to research that a little bit more, but it certainly is a problem. And the fact that it's gone unregulated for so long is another grave concern of mine as to why. I mean, we're all hearing about this now, and it's because of the homeless issue as to why it's coming to light. So yeah, this needs to be tackled, and because again, this is impacting my community, West Hills and Woodland Hills. So yeah, I would look at that immediately.
Question to you at this point, and Henry, I'll give the same one to you when we come back to you. For you, what's the most important issue for you right now that you think needs to be taken on by the state Senate to be able to help us in our community here? What's the most important issue that's going on? Is it fire? Is it health? Is it the sober living? What for you? What's the biggest deal for you right now?
It's a big mountain to climb, folks. I'm willing to do it, but it's changing the way California does business with business. We have apparently the 5th largest economy. I actually may disagree with that, but if we are indeed the 5th largest economy, why do we have such a huge homeless crisis? And why are we not educating our children properly? Business is the engine that drives our country. We look at what Sacramento has done to the independent contractors, and that is a crying shame. There was nothing wrong with the system of people working independently being free, whether you're an Uber driver, a yoga instructor, a guitar teacher, even, I know a few. People want to live on their own terms. And when Sacramento dictates in a free country, again, I have a different perspective because I am from a family of immigrants. I do come from a country and I hear the stories from my parents and families about life in Iran in a socialist and a very totalitarian country, you know, I'm haunted by the words of my father recently, who said, California today looks like Iran of 1979. It's a 78-year-old man who's been through a few things, you know, and when I hear him say that, I say, wow, you know, we didn't come here to this country to be under the thumb of a Gavin Newsom. We want to be free. We want to run businesses and be able to live our lives independent of such harsh government control. So I would repeal AB 5 immediately, or work to, I mean, it's nothing I can do by myself, but I would work to repeal AB 5 immediately. Let the people get back to work. Let businesses thrive. Believe me, I would hire some of these people on the street if they had the, you know, to move boxes in my factory. You know, I don't need Harvard, you know, or Pepperdine graduates to work for me. So all due respect to Henry, I think that you should probably look at how California is really decimating the economy of small businesses, because we can't all live off of Google and Facebook alone. We have to change the way California does business with business.
Henry, question to you then too, because we're getting about ready to wrap up here. We're getting close to the 9 o'clock hour. What's the most important issue for you up in Sacramento right now to be working on if you're elected to go back up there and deal with the legislature?
I'm telling the truth, just being decent, just starting there. I don't like being lied to. And, you know, this year has been decimating, I agree. But it gets back to just a basic sense of decency that if you're going to put someone else, their life at risk, you're going to care for them, care for your neighbor, even if your neighbor is living on the streets. But I'm still just so bitter and deeply offended that we're finding ourselves in the situation we are when this was an avoidable crisis, and now the economy has been broken because president didn't want to deal with it. It is what it is. And he knew it was coming and he didn't say anything. And I'm not going to sit here and like Trump bash all night. I don't think you've heard that from me. But we have such a huge hole to dig ourselves out of to get this economy back on track. And we didn't have to be here. It didn't have to be this bad. So,
well, Henry, there's not really much you can do about that in the state legislature, though. My question to you is really what are you going to be able to do? What's your major thing that you want to focus on in the state legislature to help us here? I mean, there's got to be something that's. And I want to talk about the fire thing real quickly. I know we're running out of time.
Yeah. So we're gonna bring my resilience infrastructure bond back next year, and I think we've got to put an incredibly solid economic recovery package together, hopefully with a little federal backing, so we don't just have to bond and borrow. I think it's risky to do that, but if we're forced to do it, I think we've got to come up with some way to get ourselves back to work. So I think that's building wildfire resilience for everyone whose homes could burn down. I think that's making ourselves water resilient so the San Fernando Valley can actually stop relying on northern imports. I think it's breaking our traffic impact, although no one's really driving as much as they used to, but I'm hoping we're going to be back on the roads again, and trying to put some kind of recovery package together. The bond we had, we would have put 100,000 Californians back to work and doing jobs that will be there for the future, that young people can look to and say, we're gonna go fight climate change, but not just like on Twitter, in a real way, which is like doing the landscaping outside of your neighbor's house, or cleaning those gutters, or hardening their home. So I think that infrastructure bond is going to be probably my central focus for next year. And I think we're derelict in our duties for not having pushed that through this year. I think it's a shame that voters won't have the opportunity to take that positive vote to reinvigorate the economy. So we're going to kind of have to limp through and pray through the next few months, and then hopefully supercharge this thing. I apologize for having a vent for a minute. It's not that I'm playing the blame game here. It's just I really see a total devolution of decency in our politics. I don't hate Republicans. I like working with my colleagues. I became good friends with my opponent from the last time. I hope, Houman, when this is over, like you and I can sit down and have a cup of coffee together, or like you can actually teach me how to properly play the guitar. My dad didn't quite teach me, but like I don't have that animosity in me, but like it's woken up this ugliness in us. So I apologize for getting into it at all. It's just it's hurting me personally too. You know, it's hurt my family. My mother-in-law is in a nursing home that's been hit by the COVID crisis. You know, we've had to like do caregiving in a way while I'm legislating and caregiving at the same time. Like this has been very unfair to people who are incredibly vulnerable. And anyhow, I thank you for indulging that, but you're right. We do have to get back to work. So that'd be my top priority.
Well, I think we're finishing up at this point. What I'd like to do is to give each of you some time to let the, listen, the truth of it is that when we're informed voters, we can make a better selection of who's going to be serving us. Both of you have done an excellent job with that tonight. I'd like to give you both an opportunity to basically talk to the people that are here as to why you're deserving of their vote, why you're going to be the better one to be able to serve this particular community. Just take a couple of minutes as to why you're the better candidate, if you will. Well, that sounds a little bit kind of odd in a way, but if you would, and listen, it's one of the things of, you know, I can do this, I can do that, but we really need to know, why are you the better candidate on this, Henry, as opposed to your opponent? And then the same question to come to you, Herman. I'll give you the last word, Herman, since we started out with Henry to begin with. So finish up with us, if you would, on it, Henry, as to why you're the better candidate.
You like your new nickname, Herman?
Herman, I respond to anything.
I would just say, again, as I said at the outset, I'm not here to be boastful or prideful, and I'm far from perfect. So I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to solve every single problem, but I promise you that I'm going to keep working my tail off for you guys every single day. And you're always going to have an open door to my office. I hope those of you who know me at all from this call know that, like, I don't try to put walls up in front of me and make myself inaccessible. I don't care if you voted for me or if you, like, I don't care if you wrote me a check. It's no offense, but like, I don't even care if you did a fundraiser for me. I'm still going to make a vote based on my conscience and hopefully for the greater good of our region. I think I've got the knowledge going through these emergencies and the ability to like stay cool and get through a crisis, whether it's dealing with this public health epidemic that we've got right now, dealing with wildfires head on, which unfortunately are only going to get worse. The extreme heat events we've been having, don't even get me started. We haven't gotten into blackouts yet, but I got a whole plan on microgrids and getting ourselves off that central grid system, because it's crazy that our communities can't be more resilient. But I'm a wonky guy. I sweat the details, and I really care about that stuff. And I don't think I'm that deep in this work yet that I'm like, I love politics. This is such a great job. I want to be in Sacramento for the rest of my life. I'm like, keep the term limits. Like, this is tough work. It's emotionally draining, and it's personally a sacrifice, but like, it is truly the privilege and honor of my whole life to work for you all. And I just hope you give me another shot at it, and that we can turn things around here. I think we've got some really creative solutions. I think the devil's in the details on any of these issues tonight. And I think that those details matter. So I'm not afraid to have that independent streak when I need to. But I can go speak in moral terms to my Republican colleagues and say, like, come on, we're better than this. And to my Democratic colleagues, I think we got to get past that stuff. And you need somebody with the right kind of animosity for politics, but who actually understands how the system works. And I think we've brought dollars back to the district. We got the film tax credit through that. Once we get this economy going again, I think will be huge to reigniting us. That infrastructure bond, that's like, I can get to this governor and move him on this stuff. I think if you want some pragmatism, and if you want not just tweets and not just posture, and I don't mean to castigate you, man. I'm not saying you just tweet all day. I know you work hard and you run your own business, and I really do respect that. So it's not a critique of you, sir. It's just that I'm kind of sick of all, I'm kind of a little sick of all of it these days. And so, like I said at the beginning, I'm just praying we get through this election, that you all stay safe and be kind and care for each other, and that we put our creative thinking caps back on and figure out how to make California golden again.
Thank you. Houman, back up to you as to why you think you're the better candidate. Let us know.
Great. Well, thank you. I want to thank everybody tonight, and Henry especially. Listen, we can beat each other up on politics, but anytime you want to come and play the guitar with me, maybe you can teach me how to surf. I hear you're a pretty good surfer. Look, I understand the frustration as it relates to the pandemic. Nothing I ever have to say will ever relate to federal politics. I'm running for a state seat. All politics are local, and leadership starts from within, not by casting blame elsewhere. There's a lot of things a lot of different people could have done. Gavin Newsom refers to us as a nation state, so assume leadership. You've locked us down for 6 months now. We're 6 months into 2 weeks of flattening the curve. And while business and people, there's a lot of other effects that are going on, suicide rates and spousal abuse and other issues that are also tied into this lockdown. So I can understand the frustration with the federal government. I'm never going to talk about the federal government. Right? I'm running for a California seat, and leadership starts from within. Your governor is more important to you than your president. Your mayor is more important to you than your governor. The head of your HOA is more important to you on a daily basis than your mayor. So again, we can argue of federal politics on another day, but I understand the frustration. I'm running because as a Californian, as someone who wants to continue to live and work in the state, I'm finding it, as a lot of people are tonight, as they're watching, increasingly more difficult. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, Republican or Democrat, independent or otherwise, California is just not becoming livable for a lot of people. As hard as we work, we're being taxed to death with promises of more new taxes coming. The way the state is being managed from a strategic point of view, I feel there's a lot of room for improvement. And before we introduce any new taxes, has anyone in Sacramento considered cuts somewhere, someplace? I'm sure there are. Gavin Newsom spent close to, I understand, I could be wrong, but you all can fact check me, spent close to $700,000 on new offices. Is this the right time for that? Notwithstanding, there's a lot of issues in Sacramento that require a fresh set of eyes to come in and help solve the problems. And I believe, coming from a CEO background, I've conducted business all over the world, China, Europe, South America, being in the fashion industry. My supply chain used to be all over the world. Today, it's all now here in San Fernando. Very proud of it. And I can't tell you how much I love what I do. I want to go back to work. I want to go back to running my factory. It's the greatest company. It's the greatest job. I love the people I work with. But right now, I think California is calling on me to put that to the side for a moment, focus on helping to be part of the solution in California, and then I'll go back to work. So I would gratefully appreciate your support, your vote, your consideration. I'm new to politics again, but I believe that that's my biggest strength, not at all a weakness. And again, I thank you all, and especially Henry. Thank you all.
Well, Houman Salem and Henry Stern, we want to thank you for spending your time away from your family and other things you could be doing tonight to talk to us. We try to get informed on what the issues are all about, and I think you guys have opened up our eyes on a lot of these issues. We deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate that. So at this point, we're going to close up the meeting at this stage with a great, heartfelt thank to both of you. And we look forward to seeing both of you again. And whoever's elected up there, our organization is more than willing to stand beside you and work hard to try to come up with a better community, a better place for us to live, work, and play. And that's really the bottom line to it. So God bless. Have yourself a blessed evening. Thank you again so much to it. We look forward to working with you again at this point in time. We'll say goodnight to all of you. And again, for the participants and the attendees that were here, thank you all so much. And we will see you back again in October the 28th for LA Unified School District candidates. Have a blessed one. Take care.